welcome everyone. And thank you so much for deciding to spend a little bit of your afternoon or evening, whatever time zone you're in, a little bit of your time with us today to join this Donorbox Academy webinar. Again, my name is Jenna and I'm the nonprofit advocate at Donorbox. And I've got Kara Augsburger, our fundraising coach at Donorbox, alongside me as well. Now, before we dive into today's content, I'd like to take a moment to introduce Donorbox for those of you who may be new here. So fundraising can be a challenge for any organization, but it really doesn't have to be. So Donorbox's online fundraising platform helps you create customizable donation forms, accept digital wallet payments, track donations, and send auto receipts seamlessly. Donorbox is designed to make your fundraising process more efficient, more effective, and more enjoyable for you and your donors. And it's totally free to sign up with the lowest fees in the market and no contract required. So you can just visit donorbox.org to join the Donorbox community. So if you are new here, welcome and thanks for joining us. And for all of our familiars, thanks for coming back. So today we've got a packed agenda. We're going to dive into an important topic that can have a significant impact on your organization's success: donor retention. And as we navigate the giving season slowdown, it's really crucial to strategize and make the most of this period to set the stage for impressive year-end results. This is what we all want to see. And hang on till the end if you can, because we have some really great real-life examples for you, plus a free downloadable that has some templates that you can use today. And by the way, the session is being recorded and you will get a follow-up email with it, but you got to be here to get those downloadables at the end. So let's go ahead and get started with a little poll in the chat box. So would you rather, drop an emoji, would you rather get new donors or retain the ones you already have? So if you think that finding new donors is the most important, put the celebration icon in the chat. And if you think that keeping the donors you already have is more important, put the heart icon in the chat, and we'll give you just a couple seconds to do that.
Oh, I love this. This is great.
I know. It feels like a little celebration.
It does.
And let's see. We'll give you just a couple more seconds.
Love it.
And if you can't find your emojis, that's totally okay. Just chime in with some text there. Awesome. Okay, so I think it's kind of a mixed bag. Right now I'm seeing a lot of celebration icons. Above I'm seeing some hearts. So attracting new donors should be a priority for your nonprofit, but not just the top priority. In fact, retaining the same donors year over year yields significantly more benefits than continuously trying to acquire new ones. So Kara, I'm actually going to pass it over to you so you can dive into this more for us.
Thank you. Well, it's good to see you all today. And so I ask you, who wants the keys to the most effective and least expensive method of fundraising? Put a thumbs up in the chat if that is you. And I don't generally speak in hyperbole, so I'm not overselling this at all. This is not an exaggeration, and here is why. So there are two really big things in the nonprofit sector that are standing out to me right now. So for the first time in a few years, across the nonprofit sector, both dollars and donors are down for many nonprofits. And so this means nonprofits are raising less money and donors are just walking away, they're leaving. And so that means that competition for support is becoming even more intense, right? Okay. The second trend I'm seeing right now is that donors are supporting fewer organizations. A few years ago, a typical donor supported 3 to 5 organizations. You wanted to be in the top 5 that they supported, but now we're seeing that they're supporting about 2.5 to maybe 3 organizations. So now you're vying to be in the top 2 that they support. And so that's a significant shift. It puts a lot of pressure on you, the nonprofit, to stand out and maintain strong relationships with your donors. And so what's the big deal about donor retention? So for one thing, it costs money to get new donors, to acquire new donors. And some research says that it could cost 10 times more to acquire new donors. So if you're spending all your time trying to find new people to give to your organization, you might be missing out missing out on spending that same time building relationships with existing donors. I got a phone call from an organization this week. They said, hey, do you have any ideas on how to get more donors? And Jen and I will both vouch for this. The most commonly asked question that we get to our team at Donorbox is, how do I get new donors? And I do want to say that that is very important. There are definitely things you can do, that you should do. There's a lot of good research on how to attract new donors to your organization. But if your only focus is on getting new donors, don't. Instead, focus on earning the second gift and then the third gift from those same supporters. And I promise you that if you spend the same amount of energy on creating meaningful touches with your existing donors, it will have a very, very high rate of return for you. And yeah, and Jenna has another poll for us. We'd love to know a little bit more about you. Tell us a little bit.
I'm going to go ahead and launch that now. You'll see that on the right-hand side of your screen.
Do your donors give year after year? What would you say? And there's no right or wrong, and this is certainly a no judgment zone. I just really would love to know, do your donors come back year after year after year? Thank you. Thanks for logging your answers in. Okay. Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of you are saying, yeah, some do. And that's probably the most popular response here. Some are saying, yes, they all come back, which is amazing. And then some are like, not really, or I have no idea. So I think we'll be able to help with all of those today. And so first we're going to talk about donor retention rate. I was at a board meeting last night. We talked about donor retention rate. Donor retention rate is the percentage of all your donors who give in 2 consecutive years, year after year. So if there's a gap in between years, it's not retention. So here are today's benchmarks for retention in the nonprofit sector. So if you're the average nonprofit, you retain 19% of your first-time donors and about 42 to 43% of all supporters. So a first-time donor is a donor who has never, ever given to your organization before. It's the first time they come to you. And those one and done supporters are really bringing down that average gift rate quite a bit. So let's face the reality of donor retention. I have this analogy for you to kind of maybe paint the picture here for you. So if you have 100 donors, you acquired 100 new donors this year, maybe from a Giving Tuesday campaign, or they came to you at an event or something like that. 8 out of 10 of those won't renew. So that will leave you with 19 or 20 for the next year. And then next year, 42% of those 20 might choose to support you year over year. So when you do the math, 42% of those 20 is only leaving you with 8 or 9. That's 8 or 9 out of that original 100 that might be in your donor pool by the 3rd year. So really try justifying that to your board. It's hard. It's a hard sell. If we're bringing in 100, we're going to keep 8 or 9. So is that how you want to get where you're going? Put a thumbs up in the chat if that is okay with you, or put a thumbs down in the chat if you think that is pretty bad news. I personally think it's scary that we as the nonprofit sector seem to be okay with this 40-ish percentile of donor retention. In the business world or the retail industry, these customer retention numbers might mean you need to close your doors. And so I did a little research, and retailers strive for 65% retention. Banks start firing management for less than 75% retention. And media and professional services are even higher. They're keeping about 85% of their customers year after year. And then in the nonprofit sector here, once they're gone, they're pretty much gone forever. To recapture those donors, it's about 4% of lapsed donors will give again. And we call those recaptured donors. So if there's a gap in their giving and then they come back. So why don't we talk about retention more? We always talk about getting new donors. And I'll say it's sometimes easier to get someone to donate once than to get them to stay with you for a long time and continue to donate. You're asking people to change their behavior and make ongoing commitments over a number of years. And that really takes some trust and consistency on your part. Jen and I had the privilege of attending the recent AFP Icon convention in April in New Orleans. And I attended a session with Dr. Adrian Sargent's research. And they said 10% improvement in retention can result in a 200% increased value in your donor database. And wouldn't that be wonderful? I really think it would be. So Can we solve this problem? Yeah, we can certainly solve this problem. In fact, I see some organizations who are seeing 60% donor retention year after year, 70% donor retention year after year. Jesse over here in the chat says 92% are monthly recurring. So yeah, they are retaining those donors, which is amazing. So what are they doing well? So it's stewardship. I think a lot of these organizations are doing stewardship well. And stewardship means being a good steward of what they give you and making your supporters feel like they're seen, like they're part of your team. And we'll talk a little bit about what stewardship is. So some nonprofits operate under the assumption that people inherently know that they need to give, or some organizations will rarely follow up when they receive gifts, and then they struggle to see fundraising success. And other organizations in the community are vying for attention from your same supporters. And are those organizations showing your same supporters more love and care than they receive when they give to you? And I certainly hope not, but when they're selecting their 2 to 3 organizations to support, they're going to go to the ones that make them feel seen and part of the team. So small to medium-sized organizations, like a lot of us here in this room, can really use a lot of the same donor building and communication techniques used by top nonprofits. And these are the 5 A's of awesome fundraising. Jenna and I and Kara Schmidt and Joanne from our Donorbox team worked through this fun way to remember the cycle of fundraising, which is a core fundraising principle. So here are the 5 A's of awesome fundraising. First, you attract supporters to your organization. Then you ask them to come alongside you by giving. Then you promptly acknowledge gifts of any size or any amount. And then you account for the donations that have been entrusted to you, and then you do it again and again. They're not fancy, they're not innovative, but successful nonprofits are actively working this cycle to cultivate a sense of belonging in their organizations. And this is what's going to keep your donors coming back. When you create that sense of belonging, make them feel like they're part of your team. So today we're going to look at 2 parts of the cycle. And when we talk about stewardship, we focus on 2 A's in particular: acknowledge, the yellow or the gold, and account, which is in the pink there. And so we're going to just talk about those a little bit. So let's start with acknowledge. So prompt personal acknowledgements and sincere gratitude go a long way. And many nonprofits are doing this well. Are you? Successful nonprofits send personal prompt acknowledgements regardless of the size of gift. And if you're not doing it, start by saying thank you to your givers immediately. Take the first opportunity to connect their gift to your mission. So I ask you, and maybe write this on your paper here, what are some easy ways to acknowledge your regular givers or your new givers, your large givers or your small but mighty givers? Think through some things that you and your staff can do right away. And we'll have some examples for you here in a little bit too. Okay, next we talk about account. You want to confidently answer the question for your supporters: can I trust you with my money? And that's where this next A comes in. It's account. You must account for the hard-earned money that your supporters give to your organization. Reports are a really great way to account for the work that happens because people give. Or do you have in-person events? You can share stories of impact there. You can send out stories in a brief e-newsletter a couple times a month, or put a story on a postcard in the mail, or feature stories of impact on your website. That's almost a must-do, right? But big change happens when organizations focus more on what is the result when you give, what good happens in the world when people support. And so that's how you are accountable for the donations that people give you. You can build a lot. You can do a lot of things to build trust and credibility with your organization. But one of our Donorbox organizations had a recent project that raised money to build a well in a poor community in Uganda. I saw some people attending from Uganda today. And so what they sent out was a fundraising appeal saying, you know, it would be really great if this community had a well. Would you help support? And so as soon as that well was built, what did they do? They sent out a picture, a photo with a short, very short write-up about, the photo was happy children drinking clean water. The joy on their faces was so evident. But what it did, it was simple for them to do that. And it was immediate. The well was built. We sent out the picture, but it put the donor right there. They saw that they gave $50 or whatever The well was built, people were happy. They didn't have to wait for an annual report to see the well built. They were able to see it almost instantaneously. And so you really don't have to overthink this accounting for the donations that are trusted to you. It can be as simple as that example I just shared. So also think about on your paper, what are some easy ways to account for the financial gifts entrusted to you? And we'll have a chance at the end that maybe you can share some of the great examples that you have too. And Jenna has a great example for us.
Thanks, Kara. So together, acknowledge and account make up stewardship. So good stewardship equals donor retention. So again, what are some ways that you could and should steward your donors? On your paper, make sure you're writing these down as we go through the session, and write down some easy ideas that would have a big impact for you. And while you're thinking about that, I have a quick story of my own to share with you. Several years back, I was working at a small nonprofit when we found out that a notable person in our community became a new donor and donated $200. We were so excited that this person chose our organization to do so, but we knew that this moment was just the beginning. We had to ensure that this person, this donor, would stay with us for the long haul. We knew that this was really important. So what did we do? We instantly followed up with a thank you email with their donation details attached for their taxes, of course, right? But complete with captivating visuals and showcasing the impact of their contribution right away. And in that receipt email, we made sure that there was an option to be included in our monthly newsletter, which had a dedicated section acknowledging our donors every single time we sent out that newsletter. So we're adding in these touch points here, right? And then shortly after, we made a personal phone call to express our gratitude. And then we followed up with them to make sure that they were following us on social media and to attend community events that we were hosting. And then later down the line, we sent them a feedback survey to show them that we really valued their opinions and input and wanted to hear from them about what their experience was, as a donor. And you know what happened next? After a few months of nurturing this relationship, we approached them with a proposal to become a recurring donor. We approached them with that ask. And not only did they agree, but they increased their contribution to something around like $900 a quarter. And for a small nonprofit, this predictable revenue was a really big deal for us and for our museum programming. So the lesson here is really crystal clear, I think. When you show gratitude and you demonstrate that tangible impact of your donors' gifts, don't stop there. It's all about fostering that meaningful relationship. And you really need to provide that value to your donors and make them feel like an integral part of that journey, not just that one-time transaction.
It is all about relationships, just like that example. And so as you think of how gifts come into your organization and how you respond to the gift and the person who gave it, consider, are you focusing on the transaction, the gift that came in, or the relationship? Dr. Adrian Sargent conducted a survey about why donors stop giving. He found, and these actually really surprised me, 18% thought the charity had poor service or communication. 13% never got thanked for donating. 9% had no memory of supporting. 8% got no information about how monies were used. And 5% thought the charity did not need them. So think about your own preferences. Why do you stop going to a particular store or a particular restaurant? And conversely, why do you go back to others? Look at your own organization through the same lens. Would you want to make a second gift to you? So there are some quick fixes you can do that actually will help solve each of these that we have up on the screen right now.
I love that question. Would you like to make a second gift to you? I think that's really reflective. So here are 3 really simple fixes you can do today even. So these might seem too simple. You might be feeling a little suspicious here, but stick with me and we'll make sure that we make the case for them. So first up, we'll talk about donation receipts. And they may seem like a simple admin task, but they're really a valuable opportunity to express that gratitude and reinforce impact. And then I'll pass back over to Kara, and she's got some acknowledgement ideas that will be memorable to your supporters as well. So not only will they remember being thanked, but they'll also remember you when it's time to give again. And then finally, I have some real life examples of some impact reports that will leave your supporters knowing that their hard-earned dollars were put to good work when they entrusted them to you. So these are all really manageable to tackle during the quiet summer season when you may not be in active fundraising full swing or promoting an event, and they'll really help your donors remember you when you do ask them for support next time. So again, as we go through these slides, I encourage you to get inspired and think of some ideas that will help your supporters understand just how much you need them and how much you appreciate them. Okay, so first up, donation receipts here. Let's talk about these really quickly. These little documents, they go unnoticed, but guess what? They have the power to make a big impact on your donor stewardship. So another opportunity to chime in the chat, if you don't mind. True or false here? Receipts and acknowledgements are the same. True or false?
If you think they are the same, thumbs up. And if you think they're a little different, thumbs down. All right. We're seeing a little bit of both, but I will tell you it's false. Receipts and acknowledgements are not the same. Your donation receipt, the receipt that your donor receives immediately after making an online donation, or the year-end receipt you send in January, is transactional. I use the analogy of a grocery store receipt for this. It's a lot like the receipt you receive from a grocery store. It lists the date, the time, the amount. It's completely transactional, okay? So, however, let's say your favorite aunt sends you a birthday gift. That would require a different response than a grocery store receipt, right? So you would never say, "Dear Auntie, your gift valued at $49.95 was received on June 14th, 2023. No, you would say something like, "Dear Auntie, you remembered my birthday. You made me feel so special when you sent the warm, cozy sweater in my favorite color. I ran to my closet and put it on immediately. You really know how to make me feel special." So that's probably more similar to an acknowledgement, to making your donors feel thanked. And so use this exact analogy to test your outgoing stewardship communication from your organization. And I can ask you to consider, so what would happen if I ghosted my favorite aunt when she goes out of her way to send something thoughtful to me? That would be the worst case scenario. Her feelings would be hurt. It could damage the relationship. She'd probably stop sending me a gift. But if my sister was saying thank you in the right way, she might send my sister double. So acknowledgements and receipts are a little different. And I do like that analogy to explain the two.
I love that analogy. So we've got a nice example of a donation receipt for you, and you'll receive the download in just a few minutes at the end of the session, so you can take a closer look at it from your desk. So remember, Kara said correctness to stakeholders equals retention. So your receipt does not need to be ugly or uninspiring just because it is kind of transactional. But the best part is that making it beautiful and impactful is easier than you think, especially if you're using Donorbox's automated receipt feature. And so I'm going to show you how to do this in just a few steps to really create a professional and welcoming and impactful receipt that leaves a lasting impression. So let's go ahead and take a quick look. So here's how it works. This is your Donorbox dashboard. So first, you're going to head over to the Campaigns tab and select the specific campaign you want to customize. You're going to click on the Edit Campaign to access that and then enhance your campaign. So in this editor, you have complete control. You can personalize the subject line by using variables like your donor's first name to really grab their attention. I know when I see my name in a subject line, I'm always clicking on it. And you can also add it there in the body of the email. You can expand the editor for access to all the controls, and you can add in those variable things there too, like your amount or any of those details. And you have the ability to format your text and add in links and images and video links as well, or you can even embed a video. So if you have an impact video or someone one of your beneficiaries saying thank you, or someone from your team, you can embed it into this. So here I'm going to add in just a simple image, and you can see that you can format it and resize it to your liking. And then once you are happy with the settings, you can go ahead and add in that variable for your donation details so that they have that in the email as well. So you can really make this your own. I did this very quickly, but you can add in all sorts of awesome gems here. And then once you're happy with the settings, you go ahead and click that orange button. And you can also consider sending yourself a test email. I always recommend this, so you make sure everything looks perfect. And you can also enable the option to ask donors to subscribe to your mailing list for future updates from your organization. This is just a really great way to stay connected. You want to make sure that you're getting in those touch points, right? So definitely include that as well. And then I'm going to show you, this is what landed in my inbox as a test. So here's an example of how your thank you message and receipt can look. Again, you can really customize this and make it your own. And this will be sent promptly after your donor makes their donation. So this is just a little extra touch that goes a long way in making your donors feel appreciated. And there's really very little admin work for you because it's automated. All right.
Well, thank you, Jenna, for that hands-on look at receipts. What I really appreciate, Dr. Sargent's research said that a lot of people don't even remember making the gift. Well, by sending that automated receipt, that transaction acknowledgement, that you're saying, oh, hey, you made this donation, and then it's in their inbox when they need to go back and refer back to it. So that is a really good example. Thank you. And I love the way that looked in your inbox too. So now we're going to talk, so that was receipts. Now we're going to talk about acknowledgements. So we talked, about the difference between the two. Receipts are transactional. They don't have to look ugly, and they can do a really good job telling your story. But an acknowledgement, if we think of that anecdote I shared, it's the warm note to your favorite aunt. It's gratitude. Your supporters cared enough to give. You care enough to say thank you. So prompt and thoughtful gift acknowledgements are really central to effective fundraising in my experience, and research backs this up. So an organization I worked with recently realized that if they wanted to inspire giving, and they were kind of at a plateau, that they needed to develop a stewardship strategy for their existing givers. They had not been doing a good job communicating with their supporters once they give. So they started with a backlog. They ran a list of all giving. They looked at giving levels, large and small. They looked at longevity. Some donors had been giving for years, and it really went unnoticed. They looked at new givers. Then they split that list up among a few of their staff team. They sent smartphone videos to say thanks. They made some phone calls. They left quite a few voicemails. They wrote notes. They sent letters. They worked through that backlog until everyone had received a thank you for thinking of us in the past. You are really appreciated. And then moving forward, they now send a handwritten note to all first-time givers. They ask a board member to call when they receive a large one-time contribution that's out of the ordinary. They say thank you when they see donors in person, and then they send special notes of gratitude to givers who give year over year, saying, we see you. And so the best prospects for future support are your current donors, and thanking them sincerely is a primary form of donor stewardship. We talked about stewardship, right? We want them to stay. And we know that when they stay, they tend to give a little more time over time. Another person I admire very much in development research is Penelope Burke. And she is part of Cygnus Applied Research. And she did some extensive donor surveys to determine how communication influences gift renewal. So that donor retention, this is key. This is what they found. I won't go through all of them. You can read them on the screen, but I want you to use these as a checklist. I've been making notes as Jenna talked. Use this as a checklist. Can you spend, we say here 75% of donors say that they want to see results that are achieved with their gifts. So could you spend 30 minutes this week writing down some results that you achieved because people gave? Brainstorm. And then maybe can you carve out some time next week to collect 3 stories about people or animals who've been helped? And most often when I'm asked to look at an underperforming development program, I find that it usually boils down to inconsistent and poor communication between the organization and the donor. So think through, write down, we'll have a time to share them here in a little bit. What are some ways that you can delight your donors this summer? So think those through, and we'll do that. I had a coaching call with a client last week, and we talked about sending smartphone videos, pre-printing some postcards, and handwriting a short note on the back, and making some phone calls. So I'll be eager to hear what maybe you have in store. Okay, talking about acknowledgements, you can certainly never go wrong with a personalized, hand-signed, genuine letter that's sent soon after the gift is received. If you're not doing it, start this week. I mean it. Make Thursday the day that you send notes every week or something, but start and then keep it going. And if you'd like to send one, I encourage you to find something outside of that standard 8.5 by 11 letterhead size. Get creative with a note card or a non-standard size piece of paper. We have this downloadable for you with an anatomy of a good acknowledgement letter. And so we will share that with you in the packet that we have at the end before we wrap up.
And to help you with this, Donorbox works as your assistant to remember important milestones that deserve that extra thanks, that extra acknowledgement. So we have a tool called Donorbox Moments, and they are triggered notifications that keep you in the loop. So whether your donors donated for the first time, or they have a donation anniversary, or an increased recurring donation, right? Maybe they were sending $10 a month and they upped it to $25. That deserves an acknowledgement. So Moments monitors these donor milestones for you, ensuring that you never miss an opportunity to show your appreciation. So you can find that right there in your Donorbox dashboard. It's going to be under the Engage tab called Moments, and you can see all of these notifications that can really remind you to reach out and acknowledge those moments for them. So a very quick poll question I will pull up for you. How quickly do you send acknowledgements after a gift is received? And while you're thinking of that, I want to let you know about an exciting opportunity coming up next month. We would like to invite you to join us for an engaging webinar workshop on crafting exceptional thank yous and acknowledgements.
So I shared with you that sample acknowledgement letter, but next month we are going to go much deeper. We're going to analyze real examples to identify what works and what doesn't. I have a whole box full over here that we'll pull out and get on the screen. During the session, you'll draft your own acknowledgement letter, and we'll workshop it with a few fellow attendees, and you'll leave with some refreshed copy to show appreciation to your supporters. And then we'll also take a look at your current acknowledgement strategy. And if you don't have one, we'll give you what you need to make one, and we'll walk through a sample acknowledgement strategy template live on the webinar. So I'm really excited about this. This is what gets me up in the morning.
Well, I launched that link for everyone. I see folks are clicking. That's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. If for some reason you can't access it, don't worry. We'll include this link in our follow-up email to you by the end of the week. And also, thank you for your poll responses here. Yeah. I think this is looking pretty good. You guys are doing
They look really great. I'm really impressed. So most of you are saying you send them out within a week after a gift is received, or within 24 hours. And a few, whenever I get around to it, or maybe never. And all of them are, thank you just so much for responding. I'm really excited to see that many of you are turning those around quickly.
Yeah, you bet. So, okay, going back to what Kara shared earlier, the 2 A's of awesome fundraising: acknowledge and account. Well, I want to focus on the account part, particularly through impact reporting. So regularly reporting your impact is absolutely a key to stewarding your donors and accounting for the funds that they entrust to your organization. It's all about boosting that donor retention, but also showing transparency and credibility here. So we're going to spend some time reviewing some nice impact reports. But before we do that, we are going to launch another poll. So does your nonprofit have an impact report? And while you're answering, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next slide. So as you're answering that, we'll talk about this. So What is a nonprofit impact report exactly? It is basically just a communication tool you use to showcase the achievements and outcomes and impact of your organization's work over a specific period of time. So you tell stories of impact, you show faces of those who were helped, you help your donors feel that they were a part of the process and a part of the team. And now you might be wondering, what does an impact report actually look like for your organization? And it's different for everyone. Some send an annual report and call it done, but we know it's more effective to tell stories of impact throughout the entire year. And again, there's no one size fits all approach. Your impact report should align with your organization's brand, your mission, and the preferences of your donors, and of course your capacity, right? So it could be as simple as an email or a postcard. A few weeks after a gift is made. It could also be calling to update an event attendee with some good work that's been done since they attended a gala. So I want to take a look at just a couple reports here. So this organization is Think of Us. They are a Donorbox org, and their impact report is available on their website. So it's really easy to access. One of the notable aspects is how they acknowledge their supporters at the beginning of the report. You can see we highlighted it in green for you. So this creates a sense of belonging, a community. And I liked this example because they use infographics to showcase their accomplishments, because we're visual creatures. If there are a lot of words, our eyes might just glaze past it, but seeing these numbers in picture form kind of helps with that dense reading material. And I also appreciate their transparency in discussing their impact growth over time. So that's illustrated in the chart over there in the bottom right. I thought that was kind of nice. Mm-hmm. Now, this is something pretty different. This is Lady Freethinker's impact report. They're also a Donorbox org. And I like how they use simple text and images to create a really compelling report. And they include a leadership letter restating their mission and a description of their animal welfare practices and programs. So this is short and sweet, and it just really demonstrates that an impact report doesn't have to be lengthy or overwhelming. And finally, let's take a look at 1018 Uganda. They are a Donorbox org, and I'd say a good friend at this point. So they created an impact report that showed program impact and financials, but I really loved that they profiled what's next for the organization. So that's the page I clipped here for you. So they tell a simple story of what donors can look forward to this year, which is really nice. So they can all look very different. So there are many ways that you can go about showcasing impact for your organization. So when creating your impact report, keep in mind these essential qualities, and I'm going to keep this brief, but it should be informative. You want to include all that relevant information about how those donations were utilized, including those fundraising results and outcomes. It should be clear. Don't use jargon, things that will confuse people that they have to Google because you're using a bajillion acronyms. You want to talk like a human, right? And then you want to use visual elements like I showed you to really help illustrate that data. It should be inspiring, right? This is an impact report. So you should show the impact of these tangible outcomes achieved through your donor support. It should be engaging. Some storytelling and some anecdotes are really great within these. And perhaps most importantly, it should be accurate. So you have to make sure that the report is accurate and transparent. If there are any errors or omissions, you need to clearly acknowledge and rectify them. Complete transparency is absolutely essential, and this is what people value most. But keep in mind, it should also be uncomplicated for your staff to create without the need for extensive resources or specialized expertise. You don't want this to stress you out, so do what's right for you.
Absolutely. And I want to encourage you, I don't want you to be intimidated by reporting. Some organizations are really, really great at reporting and showing that they are accountable for those donations entrusted to them. And it's part of an annual communication calendar, and they go out the door like clockwork. Others are a little more haphazard or don't send anything at all. But you know what? Those that do send out something that really show the impact of contributions really reap the reward. So I encourage you to do that in some form or fashion So we talked about receipts, we talked about acknowledgements, and reports. And those are three things that you can do, especially during a summer fundraising slump. Maybe you have a little extra time on your hands. So I ask you, what will you work on this summer? What's first on your list? Go ahead and put that in the chat, and then we will go through those in just a minute. But I do want to wrap up with these images. So hang in here with me because I have some things to give you in a few minutes. We're going to go through your answer or your responses, and then we'll go through some questions too. We know there's a big problem with retaining donors. We're working so hard to acquire new donors during Giving Tuesday or our fundraising campaigns. We talked earlier about trying to justify only ultimately keeping about 8 of the 100 donors you acquired after 2 or 3 years after making their first gift. And can you justify that to your boss or to your board? But better yet, you can use this same scenario. So many donors are walking away to justify a wonderful relationship building program that doesn't cost anywhere near as much as donor acquisition. And you get a bonus. It engages your board members in a no cost or maybe low cost activity. So I encourage you, focus on earning the second gift and the third gift. And I have another image for you here. Look what happens when those supporters decide to trust you in the second and third year. Donors who commit past that second gift to an organization tend to stick around longer, and that repeat donor retention rate is really closer to 60%. Repeat donors are donors who gave last year to the organization and they were not new. So they've given maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years in a row or more. And Stewardship is a wonderful relationship building program. I mentioned it's simple, it's affordable, it takes some time and intentionality. And so I ask you, I'm going to leave you with this here. I would like to ask you, what is your retention rate? If you don't know it, we have something to give you to be able to calculate it. But this is an example of a monthly report used by an organization I work with. This was from a board report from a meeting last night. So they started out the year knowing that they wanted to boost their donor retention metrics. So I encourage you to find your rate, then stay on top of that rate. The goal of calculating your retention rate is to keep improving it. You can't know where it is unless you actively monitor it. And then monitor it monthly. Include it in a monthly report to your board of directors like this. And this particular report is completed and shared with the board of directors every month. And as far as donor retention is concerned, this organization was hovering right around that benchmark level, about 45% in previous years. And this year's target goal is 10% higher at 55%. So they identified that goal, that target level in green, that column that's green. And they do not want to dip it down below last year's results of 45%. So that's the column that's highlighted in red. They want to keep it there. And we know that just 10% more retention can bring up that value of that donor database significantly. So that's why they're monitoring it. And this is how they did the work. So in their data, they tagged all 2022 donors. And in January, they realized 28% of those 2022 donors made a gift. Then the next couple of months, a few more gave. And before you know it, they've retained 38% of last year's donors. And then at the end of May, you can see they've retained 41% of last year's donors, and they're well on their way to their goal. And so this is cut. I did a screenshot. This is cut from a bigger tracking spreadsheet that they look at every single month at a meeting. But you can see that this is one of the metrics the board deemed important enough to be weighed for the executive director bonus at the end of the year. There are many other metrics that are tracked overall, but 4 other metrics are also included for this executive director bonus. So they're really keeping their eye on donor retention. I thought you would just enjoy seeing how this particular organization keeps their eye on this metric. So I wanted to share that with you. So all that said, here are some things that might make a good summer slump action plan. And I'm going to go into the comments here and see if you have any good ideas of what you're doing. Okay, Michael's going to work on an engaging impact report. And we have some questions around that, so we'll do that. Handwriting thank you notes to monthly donors, but we don't have the time. Yep, feel that. And then, yeah. Oh, Christina has a good comment here. So Maya, I don't handwrite notes. I print them out and sign them and add a simple 1-line note like we appreciate you or thanks for joining our community. 100% perfect. You can mail merge that and get that done. I love that. And volunteers who write handwritten notes.
Yes.
Jenna, I know you had some good thoughts too. We were talking about this before. What stands out to you? Maybe an idea for the summer.
Yeah, I think this kind of goes back to delighting your donors. I love that term. And it really can be as simple as recording an iPhone video and sending it out to your top donors just really quick. We all have our phones right here all the time, right? Like, hey, Lisa, thank you so much for that $50 donation. Here are your dollars at work. Sending out a surprise postcard. I love snail mail. If you don't have the capacity, just a simple phone call, or going even deeper if you want to really dig into that appreciation, offering them special perks for being top donors, or holding a donor exclusive event, or having their own newsletter just for donors, and letting them see behind the scenes. There's really a lot of ways that you can get creative here, and it doesn't have to be time consuming either.
Yeah, I actually have this sitting on my desk. I got this in the mail maybe a week or two ago. But it's actually a newspaper. This organization sends out a newspaper, but it says right here, you made 3 new grants possible is the headline on that, which is neat. That stood out in my mailbox. I'm not getting anything else that looks like that. So that looks really interesting.
Sarah says our board will be thank banking. I love thank banking. That's cute. All donors in June, July, and August. That's awesome. We call them thankathons. Kara and I just recorded a podcast episode about thankathons. So if folks are interested in learning how to do that thank banking, you can check out the Nonprofit podcast on Spotify or Apple. That's awesome.
And I love this comment of engaging the board members in a card writing party to assign specific donors to each board member. Brilliant. Give them a kit so they don't have to kind of think of your talking points. And write a card about an upcoming donation milestone. Oh my goodness, I love that. I would love if you could email us a picture of one of those when you're finished at academy@donorbox.org.
Yeah, anybody who's working on those impact reports, I know there are a couple in the chat. You can email us at academy@donorbox.org. We never get tired of seeing these things. We're always so inspired by our org. So
absolutely.
Board party. Your board should be doing this for you, you guys. They should be doing this for you. That's awesome.
Well, Jenna, would you like to jump to questions real fast, and then we'll go back? Okay, super. Oh, wait, we have the handout. We have the handout.
I skipped too quickly. So you guys, as promised, you stuck with us to nearly the end. Don't hop off yet, though, because we want to go through some questions. But we do have a downloadable gift just for you. So you'll see this pop up on your screen under the handouts tab. Let me get that rocking and rolling for you. Here we go. So this includes a donor stewardship checklist, a donation receipt template, and a sample acknowledgement letter. So all the goods for you, right-hand side of your screen under handouts. And if for some reason you cannot download it, please reach out to us at academy@donorbox.org, and we will get that right over to you.
And our Donorbox Premium members will have that in your coaching portal. So that'll be exciting.
Awesome. Well,
I love these questions.
Let's see. I think we've got some good ones here. So should we go ahead and dive in?
Let's do it.
All right. We'll start at the most recent because that's where they are on my screen. So Sharon asks, your thoughts on a phone call versus note cards?
Great question. I have no preference. I think whatever is easier for you and more manageable for you. But I also encourage you to think of it from the recipient's perspective. So what would delight your donors more? If you know someone enjoys talking to you on the phone, then a thank you call would be great. A note card is always welcome in my mailbox. That's how I save them. So I think just knowing your donor's preference, and if you don't know it, then just default to whatever's easier to you. I think the important thing is you do something and make it very genuine. And if you are making phone calls, you're probably going to go to voicemail. So I would have 2 scripts ready. I would have one if they answer and one if they don't. And so that way you're ready.
You bet. Now, this wasn't a question, but I wanted to comment on this. Maya had mentioned they want to handwrite thank you notes to their monthly donors, but They just don't have the time. I feel you. I understand that. So I was a volunteer manager in many of my previous roles at nonprofits, and I utilize those volunteers. If your organization isn't at the stage where you have those volunteers yet, maybe get your board on board, right? Or your friends and family, offer them some pizza, some nice drinks, and get them to sit down with you and handwrite those cards. There are a lot of ways that you can bring in your community to help you get there. Of course, don't stress yourself out if that's not within your capacity. You can also do things like ringless voicemail too. So some options there.
And Christina had a good comment to Maya's comment there. Kind of mail merging some copy onto a card, or you can order it from like Vistaprint or a printing company with some pre-printed copy there. But then I think what would make it warmer, you can warm it up significantly. If you're printing something, I always encourage blue pen and handwrite a small note, even something just your support makes this happen. And it's a nice photo of your work in action or something along those lines. And blue pen is the key, so they know it's not lasered on. Because now you can laser in blue, so it doesn't really matter. But
so follow up to that, Kara, maybe you have some insights here. Should that thank you note always be coming from the founder? Who should it be coming from? So if you have a group of folks working on these.
Yeah, I think there's kind of a priority in my mind. So if the founder knows them personally, yeah, that'd be great. If the founder has capacity to write all of them, that is even better. But maybe they have a relationship with someone on your board and it would be meaningful, or they have a relationship with a development manager. I know I coordinated scholarships for an organization, and when someone would give to a scholarship program, I wrote the thank you note because I was the scholarship manager, and I was able to talk about the impact that I saw in some of the applications that were coming in and those things. So I think whoever's most relevant to the donor, again, think of it through the donor lens, who's most relevant, who's most recognizable. Honestly, as long as something is getting sent out, that's okay. And I also worked in a role where I had permission from our executive director to sign his name. So on behalf of so-and-so, thank you. And then I would put my name next to it, like my initials next to it. That's kind of cold, but that was also like 25 years ago. But yeah, so I think as warm and genuine and authentic as you can make it, it would be great.
Now, this question, do impact reports and acknowledgement letters need to be snail mail?
Absolutely not. Again, it's your donor preference. Some people love mail, some people don't. I think it's always a good idea to try to mail something every year. Impact reports can be digital. They can be a PDF sent. I think what I would do is send it with as personal of an email as possible along with it. So there's some, if you can send it right from your inbox, that's great. Hey, Jenna, I saw you gave. I wanted to make sure that you got this impact report first thing. Follow up with a phone call. Hey, did you get the impact report I sent? If you can't do that, if you can't make those one-on-one emails happen, there's some good email extensions for both Gmail and Outlook that you can mail merge an Excel spreadsheet and really make it look personalized through your own inbox. And so there's some ways you can do that and learn that. Yeah, you can email, you can send it digital. I think adding whatever personal touch you can to it would make it better. Thank you notes, I think an email right out of your inbox is just as effective for the people that really enjoy digital. The hard part is you don't know if they've opened it. I guess, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, this wasn't a question, but I wanted to highlight. So Susan shared with us what she'll be working on over the summer. So reconstructing or restructuring communications, collateral, and new donor engagement strategies. I love it, Susan. Yes, I just needed to highlight that. That's awesome.
Treat yourself to a special drink or a little snack while you carve out your time to do that. I love that.
I love that.
That's great.
Cookie asks,
hey, Cookie,
do we have an impact report template? I recall we did somewhere, but I don't.
Oh, look. I don't remember making one.
Okay.
We just have those examples we shared And Cookie, if you're on Canva, I would go to Canva first. That'd be my first place. And there's some really good templates you can customize there. And your nonprofit, if you file with Canva as a nonprofit, you can receive some nice discounts. And there's a free version of Canva too. Yeah, that's what I would do. But we will work on making one.
Yes.
That's a priority. That's what we'll do this summer.
For those of you who are not familiar, we do have a Donorbox library, and I can drop that link in the chat. So we have all sorts of handy stuff in there, just templates and best practices. So if we do end up making an impact report, it would live in the library.
I see this question here from Maya. I think we have time for a couple of questions. Do you think postcards are more or less effective than a letter or a card in an envelope? I personally find postcards to feel cheap. That's a really honest observation. I think I do like postcards, especially for like monthly donors or something like that, where you're kind of delighting them out of the blue. You're surprising them with something. I recommend this summer, delight your donors out of the blue, not in response to a gift they made, just something out of the ordinary. I think a postcard's a great way to do that. If they just made a very large donation to your organization, get your pen out. Handwrite it, and do that for as many donations as you possibly can. But if you're sending out a batch at a time, a nice visual of your mission in action, not you, not your building, not anything boring, your mission in action, faces of people who are being helped, and a note on the back, hand signed if possible, I think is still very moving. So just balancing it out among a couple different things to make it eye-catching. Some people are sending video, especially for monthly donors, sending every quarter something different. So a video 1 quarter, a postcard 1 quarter. We had a Donorbox organization that baked cookies, and their whole staff signed a holiday card, and they hand delivered them to their donors. They were a regional nonprofit in California. But they were able to do that to some of their major donors and board members and really say thank you that way. So have a bake-a-thon. I don't know. I think it sounds fun.
That's cute.
I don't have time to do it, but
I love that. Okay, let's see. Another question here, and this is a really great question. So I mentioned that we would include donors' names in our quarterly newsletters as a form of appreciation. So do you ask permission to publish donors' names? Many of our donors may not want that recognition in a newsletter every month. So what we did was on our donation form, we included a checkbox for people to opt. So specifically for recurring donors, we said like, hey, do we have permission to, put your name in our newsletter or, even reach out so that we can highlight you on social media. And they also have the option to make their donation anonymously as well. So we always ask permission. I don't know, Kara, if you have some insights if legally you have to, but we did just to cover our bases.
Yeah, Penelope Burke, I mentioned some of her research. She actually has some research on donor rolls, and they are typically not even, donors don't, her research says that donors don't give to get their name on a roster. Mm-hmm. The exception to that would be clubs, alumni organizations, fraternal organizations. They really, her data shows that they really like having their names listed. So I think for your organization, it would just depend on what is comfortable to you. I always think a personal reach out would be great. A little shout out on social media. If you're comfortable listing new donors on your monthly newsletter, I think that's fine. But I would go with wherever your personal comfort level is. And I like that opt-in, Jenna. I think that's really nice. Yes, include me on a donor list. That's an easy enough to put on there.
Awesome. Well, I think
this one had a donor list in it, I noticed. So that's kind of
great. Yes. And in impact reports, that's particularly common. Maybe not always as much in your newsletters, but for impact reports, I see that more often than not.
Yeah. Penelope Burke's research says the more personal acknowledgement and recognition, that's what makes a difference. So
I love that. Okay, we have one more quick one that I would love to answer. So does Donorbox have retention stats in the back end? So what we do have is a really nice reporting feature. So when you are in your Donorbox dashboard, under the Engage tab, we have something called Reports, and you can click to run new reports. So we do have run a new report on new donors, on your donor overview, so the total donation count and amount for all of your donors, and then your live ones. So last year, but not this year. I'm sure that we'll be continually growing these reports as we go along. We have some cool things in the works, but we do have some reporting features that could guide you along the way.
And we have a calculator that we created at donorbox.org. Jenna can launch that, and you can, even if you just Google Donorbox calculators, you can find that, and you can calculate your year-over-year retention rate, or you can go back a few years and calculate how many from 2021 stayed in 2022, how many from 2020, renewed in 21. So you can monitor that over a couple of years. I think boards would probably really geek out over that number. So.
All right. Well, we have made it past the top of the hour. So if we could not get to your question today, or I think we covered all of them, but if you think of something else, you can always reach out to us at academy@donorbox.org. If you've got some impact reports that you want to send our way, I would love to see those too. And I want to thank you, everyone, for all that you do to serve others. We are so proud to provide the tools and resources you need to help others. And Kara, thanks for sharing your expertise as always.
Oh, thanks, Jenna. And a big thank you to Stephen, who has been very, very busy in the chat answering questions. Stephen is one of our account executives at Donorbox, and he is a wonderful, wonderful person to get to know. So thank you, Stephen, for giving your time today too.
Yes, thank you. And thanks so much, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Bye.